Where are you fellas from? Uranus. Hello to my earth signs, Capricorn, Taurus and Virgo. Welcome to the Leo new moon. You'll find the timestamps for your rising sign listed below. Hello Capricorn rising, welcome to your horoscope for the new moon in Leo, happening on August the 16th at 7:38 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So we get to start again, Capricorn. So let's really go with that. Let's be lions. Let's let our hair down. Let's be proud of ourselves at everything that we have experienced. And let's look to the future or look to the next round in terms of how our resources are interwoven with someone else and the ties that bind the emotional contracts that we sign in this life. This is the evening to sow some seeds, to sort of look here and be excited about the intensity of life, which might sound a little bit exhausting after all that we've been through lately. But this is what a new moon in the 8th house does. We get to think about sincerity, and we get to think about the feeling of like, kind of like obligation in some way. Do you consider like, there are some relationships that we have in this life that feel like some sort of contract. They feel like it is my obligation to see it through. It's my obligation to provide this or that or the other, and to receive this or that or the other. This is the contract that we have signed by either our relationship to one another, our blood relationship to one another, or our commitment to one another. These relationships can feel really intense, and they can be really ecstatic and powerful and really teach us about our emotions. They can also teach us about our emotions and be incredibly painful and hurtful. At a new moon, when there's no moon in the sky, when it's black and dark, and we have to use our instincts to move forward, and we have to feel things out, probably use some of our senses too, our sense of smell, touch, taste, the other. We get to work with the energy that's left here on the planet, and we get to ask for what we hope to receive. So think about it, Capricorn rising. Think about how you would like to oblige yourself contractually with the resources and the intensity of another from now on. It might be different to the way that you thought things would work out in that area. I was with a gorgeous friend of mine the other day, one friend of which I think that I've unconsciously signed a beautiful contract with, that I'm very proud of. We were talking about romantic partnership, and they said, everyone breaks up. Like it was sort of sobering. It was sort of like, yeah, look, sometimes the relationship sees its course. And sometimes all we can do is grieve it for the amount of time that it takes to grieve it. And that's up to you, that's not up to me. And then put it to rest, and then move through and continue on our path in life. This conversation takes place in the 8th house, Capricorn. This is where we get to get stuck into the nuts and bolts of that. Now, the sun and the moon are at 23 degrees of Leo. So we're nearing the end of Leo season. It will only be a week longer until we enter Virgo season. And there's a conversation that's happening with the sun and the moon in your 8th house. And they're talking to the planet Uranus in Taurus in your 5th house of individual self-expression and creativity. Now, I've pulled out the Fool card here because it's a great visual depiction, perhaps, of some of the ways that Uranus can play out in our life, some of the qualities that the planet can bring. In modern astrology and modern tarot reading, there is like an interrelationship with those two energies, Uranus and the Fool. There's something really fearless about the Fool, and there's something really kind of innovative about their enthusiasm to move ahead and to get started again. Taurus is your fifth house, which is where we express ourselves, where we find our voice box, where we translate the world around us. So I want you to have a little think about the last 5 years and your relationship with your self-expression, your access to fun and pleasure, how you've been rewriting your own script, how you've been working with your perception on life and how that's been coming through you and how you've been sharing that. Because I might hazard a guess that perhaps Uranus has been working with you in that fifth house, has been working with you to sort of reevaluate and to innovate the way that you express yourself in this life. Now, it's an outer planet, so it does move very slowly. So Uranus won't leave Taurus until 2026. So we've got a while to work with this feeling. It's going to be, 8 years all up, possibly, in your fifth house. And you possibly won't have Uranus there again in your lifetime. It's quite a slow-moving planet, so it does go around at a snail's pace. If there's a conversation that's happening between Uranus and that square, that pressure with this moon, it might be, I would say, as like an invitation to, when assessing, when thinking about your eighth house, thinking about your emotional contracts that you intend to sign or that you have signed, think about how you express yourself these days. And can this Fool, this character that is unafraid to be themselves, inform your wishes at this time? Now, the other planet that is talking to Uranus, talking to the Fool, is Mars. So a couple of hours after the new moon takes place, so 7:38, I think it's at 11:53, Mars will perfect an exact trine with Uranus, which is incredible support. Strange bedfellows, because we know that Mars has been really shaking things up lately and being quite brash and quite rude and quite disruptive. Mars in Virgo, in your ninth house of spirituality and expansion, travel, having you move around maybe, or long to move around, take a big journey over the last weeks, maybe the last month. There's something maybe that you've picked up on this trip that is speaking to your sense of self, your creativity. There's something kind of bold about Mars, brave, and it's kind of almost an invitation to like roll with the punches too. It's sort of like, well, I wasn't expecting that to occur or for that to be revealed to me, but I'll take it as a sign. And so now I can work with this. If I'm going to work with this sign, shoot it back down to my individual creativity, and then maybe I can be the channel and I can get this out. That's really lovely, Capricorn, and it's kind of really well deserved too. I like this sort of commitment to oneself for you over this last period of history. Suits you. It really does. Hopefully I've done it in time, but I am intending to post these on the 13th of August, which is the day of the Venus conjunction with the Sun, or Cazimi is a word that I've just learned from ChannyNicholas.com, by the way. Channy's an incredible modern astrologer, and I don't know if I've told you about her already, but please check her out if you have not. Anyway, that's a side note. A Cazimi is like the moment that Venus passes from their night star routine to their morning star routine. So we know that Venus is the brightest light in our night sky, and sometimes she can be seen in the morning. And Venus, the energy, can be the Empress in tarot, but it's the summit of beauty and love, pleasure dome. So back to Leo, back to your 8th house of contracts, of emotional, maybe sexual intensity. Is there a moment in the second half of 2015 that you can pinpoint for yourself where things felt really that they were working, or there was some sort of recognition of your beauty? And can you look forward to that now? Because Venus is Cazimi in Leo again. Takes a little while for this to happen in each of the signs, you know? And it's just a marker point. It's just sort of like maybe you just say to yourself, gosh, I'm good. Gosh, I'm good at like the hard stuff, sticking to task. Gosh, I'm good at like committing. Maybe not other folks in my life are, but I am really good at it. I'm really proud of myself because I show up for people in times of crisis. I'm the first person that folks call when they've got a flat tire or when they need something. And I do it, and I do it with pride. I do it like as an act of like service, but also my expertise really works there. I'm good at the hard stuff. This is all the stuff that you can say to yourself, Capricorn rising. So hopefully I'll put these horoscopes out in time so you get the message, because it's important. It's important to take these little moments to ourselves where we can be like, gosh, you're good, you know? All right, I'm gonna get you some little cards to finish this one off. And then I've got to start preparing for the next full moon, which is a big one, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. This collaboration, whatever it is that you were building with someone, whatever it is that you were working towards in a really practical, diligent, awesome Capricornian kind of way, and the stopgap that's happened, the sort of act of intentional stillness, is going to lead you into a beautiful sense of kindness for yourself. It feels kind of maybe a little bit disappointing. That's the 3 of Pentacles. So that's, you know, it's Capricorn energy, babe. But it's about sort of like working together and collaborating and sort of building something and using the expertise of each of the individuals to get something done. Followed up by this moment of blindfold and of inactivity. And this isn't to say that this is you sort of like being out of control or out of your depth, you know what I mean? But this is a moment where you just can't actually do anything. It's important to take the moment and to be inactive. Intentional stillness is something that we could all learn a thing or two about. We can feel kind of like the pressure of like results on our back. We can feel like, well, we've got to keep doing this, or, you know, like, oh, well, forget it then. I'll, you know, that sort of like tension in the chest and sort of like that sort of rising anxiety that can occur when we're inactive. 2 of Swords is about intentional inactivity. You can see the swords, maybe they represent different perspectives too. But whatever this was, whatever this work that was building towards has met that fork in the road. I want to remind you of the significations of Leo. This is the Strength card. This is the Leo card. There's a lion in this card. Huge, ferocious, vibrant, powerful, aggressive maybe. It's the Strength card because this lion is being tended to and calmed by someone who is really gentle and really empathetic and really soft. I love that the Strength card talks about our ability to be soft as an act of defiance against aggression, against violence, against cruelty. If you can maintain this with yourself, Capricorn, if you can sort of discover and sort of take note, perhaps of the rising lion inside of you, the one that does want to bite back, and you have the ability to self-soothe now. It could also be externally too. There might be someone that you were able to temper with a bit of vulnerability rather than sort of get stuck into it. But this disappointing feeling that I get of like something being stacked up, something being built towards, and then nada, like it's sort of this fork in the road's widening and I can't take this path with you anymore. That on either side would be disappointing. And I think it's really beautiful that whoever was aggressive or had the potential to bite back was tempered with truth and clarity and kindness. It's powerful work, Capricorn. There's nothing really much more to say. That's really beautiful. Good on you. And perfect in the 8th house too. That's your reading, angel baby. Much love to you. If you're still here with me, throw me a lion in the comments. That'd be sick. I can read your birth chart. They look like this beautiful thing here. I'll draw you one up and I'll tell you who you are using the stars. You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. If you would like to learn about the goddess asteroids, I feel confident now. I've been gently folding this language into my readings, and I'll be crafting something that's specific to the asteroid goddesses. So if that's something that you really wanted to know about in relationship to your chart, I feel that I'm kind of ready. It's not advertised on my website yet, but you can book with me and just send me in the message section, just say, talk about the goddesses, and I'll craft it for you. You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. I love you very much. I'll be with you in 2 weeks, and we're going to talk about the super blue full moon in Pisces. It's going to be hectic. It's going to be the 2nd full moon in August, which is why it's called a blue moon, and it's going to be lighting up your 3rd house of the goddess. So we've got a lot to flush out, a lot of ritual to enact, and a lot of celebration and gratitude to show for the goddess specifically. Much love to you, Capricorn rising. You take care. Bye. Hello, Taurus rising. Welcome to your horoscope for the new moon in Leo, happening on August the 16th at 7:38 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So it's a black night, Taurus rising. There'll be no moon in the sky. We get to work with our instinct, and we get to ask for what we hope to see have happen in our 4th house of our home, our roots, our privacy, our stability, our comfort, all of the sort of private chambers of your life. We get to kind of look around the room and assess and be like, yeah, I've got what I need. I'm grateful for that. How else would I like to extrapolate on this sense of home and belonging? How can I, be extra specially house proud and deck out this place? Not to be a sort of, consumerist, but like it would probably be unsurprising to me, Taurus rising, if you weren't a little house proud and if you weren't sort of really in your element when languishing around the home. So this is the night for it. This is the night for you to look around, to kind of maybe like sort of harness some of your sort of Leo-ness too, You know, Leo is the sign that is full of like heart-centered pride and love and drama. So think about home, think about your environment and get stuck into it. New moons are almost like a seed where we get to plant for the future. We get to sort of imagine and think about what we might like to have and call it in. You know, I'm sort of moving away more and more and more from that sort of language of like manifestation and all that kind of stuff. Because really, well, I don't want to be judgmental, but at this period in history, it'd be good for all of us to recognize that we don't have much, but we're proud of what we do have. And we, in fact, don't really need that much either to have a happy life. So when it comes to your home environment, even if it's just like give the place a little vacuum, you know, burn some incense, get some fresh flowers in, set the space, and then kind of be like proud of it. Like, shit, this is what I've built. It's gorgeous. I'm really into it. Whenever there's a lunation in Leo, maybe it'll be good for you to remember, Taurus rising, that it is about your privacy. You know, it is about your home space. And so if we think about that dragon's head and tail, you know, kind of like shaking up your sort of like core and like letting go of relationship. In the past, that would have squared off with your fourth house of the home environment. We know that that dragon's head has moved on into Aries. So a fresher start I couldn't think of than the night of the 16th. There's a couple of different aspects that we'll go through, but then I'm going to get stuck into the tarot. So I wanted to talk about Uranus. I wanted to talk about your first house, your house of self, and the correlations between the tarot and the planets. Some modern tarot readers and modern astrologers will sew in the significations of Uranus into the full card, and it's a good way to like remember visually what maybe each of the planets mean if you prefer pictures than talking about it. The Fool is unafraid to step forward into bold new territory. It feels like this is something that is just beginning. It's a fresh perspective. It's the beginning of a new life. And the Fool is kind of stoked to do so. They've got their little knapsack. They don't need much. Again, they've got their little mate down here, the little white dog, who is really happy for this new journey. You know, you can always trust a dog. Like if a dog's feeling fear, it's probably good to check the area, you know, sort of suss out what's going on. But in this instance, the little puppy's happy as Larry. So you can trust this. Uranus is a great innovator. They sort of think about the revolution. They think about changing things up, like looking at life from like a greater perspective. If you imagine the physical reality of Uranus being discovered, it was through a telescope. It was through, we didn't know that Uranus existed in the galaxy until the technology was sound enough to spy it with a telescope. And it sort of flipped the script on humanity's sort of sense of the outer limits too. It was like, oh, I didn't realize that the galaxy went out that far, but it does. So that's what Uranus brings with it. I think in Roman mythology, Uranus was the god of the sky. You know, Uranus was actually the one that sort of made love with Gaia and sort of birthed the universe. So you can see that kind of like revolution too. It's about innovation, starting something fresh. So the planet Uranus has been in your first house of the soul center, of your belly, of your like rising intention since 2018-19. Uranus entered Taurus and was in there full time from 2019. So if you can think about the revolution of self that you've been going through since then, maybe the person that you are now is perhaps very different to the person that you were leaving behind in 2019. And think about all of the different ways that you've developed in that time too. This is where the pressure is coming from. So the sun and the moon are at 23 degrees of Leo. Uranus is at 23 degrees of Taurus. So there's like almost as if it's like a megaphone of Uranus saying, okay, don't, remember who we are now. Remember these changes. This is what home is going to look like. This is how I provide safety. And this is who I provide safety for now too. Maybe different from before. I think that the kind of squaring off can sometimes be a bit sort of jarring. Hopefully we can work with this in the sense of the Fool, in the sense of like, no, remember it's 0. We're starting, like, we get to start again. Isn't that sick? Awesome. Let's dive in. Genesis Purge from Throbbing Gristle. I always think of them whenever I see the Fool. In fact, in my long-awaited friggin' paintings, I might... Oh, that's private. Anyway, to be continued. The Fool and Genesis Purge... excuse me, I've lost my train of thought. When Genesis Purge from the band Throbbing Gristle was talking about love, their philosophy on love was see a cliff, jump off. Doesn't matter. You can trust it. If it feels right, you'll know, and you're developing your intuition too. Difference between this feels exciting and this feels right. And that's what Genesis Purge is talking about. We only have one life, and we've got to experience love where we find it. So I think that there's something here about your sort of private world and your sense of self, and the love that you're finding is being offered to the person that you are now after the revolution, which you should be really proud of, Taurus rising. It's no mean feat. So that's the moon, and that's the sort of like conversation. About 4 hours after, so about 7 minutes to midnight, Mars, who's been effing things up in your 5th house of creativity, perhaps giving you that sort of like urgency. And remember, there was that face-off with Saturn too, so there was that sort of like drive to the sort of individual creative muse that you had to follow, maybe that was in some way in opposition to a sense of community or a sense of friendship. At this 7 minute to midnight point, Mars is in fact forming support with Uranus in your 1st. So I would love for you to tell me all about your breakthrough at this new moon in Leo, if there, and no pressure, but if there's some sort of like eureka moment for you creatively, if you can really feel the energy of Uranus and of Mars working in sync. The tarot that we can look at, careful, is the Tower. This is a great visual depiction of Mars and the potential for what Mars can bring with them. So it almost feels like there's sort of like a course correcting here, or like a pivot in your creative work. Maybe that's what's coming to you, sort of like, oh, I thought that this thing was about this, but no, forget it. Now it's about this. Now it's about this. It's actually got more to do with me than I thought it did. Perhaps I was working behind some sort of barrier with this, and I was being sort of creative on the outer. But I'm realizing that this work that I'm involved in, that I'm creating, is far more personal. And it actually works better when I put more of myself into it, but more of this version of myself. Because I'm so proud of this work that I've been doing. I'm so proud of it. And I reckon that this creative work is going to be better informed by putting more of my personality into it, more of myself into this thing, more of my own experience, my stories, the stories that I have perhaps can be interwoven, folded into this thing that I'm creating. It feels like a pivot, because it's sort of like, yeah, Mars, will crush anything that wasn't working. And the Fool is freshness and sort of self-confidence too. It's like, la, 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 la. This is who I am. Dive on in, the water's fine. I don't mean to make it too pressurized, Taurus rising. You'll tell me in time, won't you? Let's get you some intuitive tarot though, because I think we're onto something. I think this one. One more thing. I'm hopefully posting these on the 13th of August, just as a little side note. And on this day, the sun is conjoined exactly with Venus retrograde. So back to your fourth house, your home, your roots, your privacy, your love of the home environment. There's the Empress. So maybe there's just like something will happen for you today where you'll look around and be like, I love what I've built. I love this place. I love this feeling of nurturing and protection that I've created for myself. I love this creative, pleasurable life that I've built for myself. That could be something too. Oh, I'm running out of time. Holy smokes. All right. 3 cards, I think, just to put a stopper on this little vibe. All right. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Effing stunning, babe. Effing stunning. This individual has shown up maybe for a month now. I can't quite remember. But this is a beautiful ceremony of potentially saying goodbye to something that was really nurturing, something that was really kind, something that felt really generative. An energy in your life, perhaps from external, someone that you were in relationship with or that was around you, that really did do their best to protect you and love you and care for you and nurture you. There's her rabbit again, you remember? There's her little rabbit. And moving gently, gently from this relationship, this intermingling, starting again. You've got nothing to hide. You're going to jump on in. The water is just fine. You're leaving the cosmic egg, you might say. You're birthing yourself again into a brand new trip around the zodiac, around the tarot, around the wheel of life. You should be super proud, Taurus rising. This is wild. Nothing to hide. Nothing to hide. Be yourself in this. Be yourself in this creative process too. Whatever you're cooking up could do with a little more of you in it, I would say. Because you're really gorgeous. And you've got the ability in your artistry to craft something that does move emotions for other folks. And you'll see that you've also got nothing to hide, that you can afford to be a little bit more naked in your approach. Mask off. Huge love to you, Taurus rising. If you're still here with me, throw me a lion in the comments, please. That would be awesome. If you'd like me to read your birth chart, this is what they look like. I'll draw one up for you and I'll read for you at umaruby.com. You can book yourself a spot there with me. I've been learning a lot about the asteroid goddesses, as I'm sure that I've told you countless times, but I feel that I'm ready to tailor a reading specifically speaking to those asteroids. So if that's something that you'd like to engage in, you can book a reading with me and just make note that you'd like it specifically to be about the asteroids. I'd be thrilled to do that for you. You can tip me at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby, and I'll be with you in 2 weeks, and we'll discuss the full blue supermoon in Pisces, which is going to be an effing trip. And I might get in early and try and film these horoscopes so I can really relax into it and enjoy it, because it's going to be a big one. It's on the 31st of August, and for you it's going to be sort of lighting up your 11th house of friendship and belonging. So it's going to be nice. It might be actually a great evening for you, Taurus rising, to hang out with your mates. That's just a little bit of advice. Come in early, but I'll fill you in 2 weeks for sure. I love you heaps, Taurus rising. You take care. Bye. Hello Virgo rising, welcome to your horoscope for the new moon in Leo, happening on August the 16th at 7:38 p.m. if you're in the southern hemisphere with me. So it's a new moon, it's a dark night, we have to use our instinct, we have to delve into the deeper recesses of your 12th house, Virgo. This is private, this is sort of hidden work, this is internal work, and it's something that you should be ultra proud of yourself for doing. And maybe if I release these on time, I intend to release these on the 13th of August, so don't quote me, but hopefully they'll come out on the day of the Venus Cazimi in Leo too, which means Venus, the Empress, the planet of pleasure and beauty, the summit of beauty and love, is conjoining the sun and then passing over to create the morning star. So there's something, hopefully, that will be working in your inner chambers today, Virgo rising, that you can feel some sense of like accomplishment. You can maybe consider the way, simple as this, you know that phrase, break the cycle? It's a really powerful one, especially when you can maybe think about different relationship patterns or different sorts of like processes of the inner workings of the self that in some way you kind of maybe feel you inherited them. You know, it could be quite literally, it's sort of like, oh, I've got the same, approach as my caregivers and my grandparents and all of that kind of stuff. Why do we always continually exist in this kind of crisis? This feels like you're breaking the cycle. I'd like you, maybe before we go anywhere else, Virgo rising, is to think back to 2015, like the end part of 2015, and think about the opportunity that was presenting itself for you at that time. What other cycles were you breaking in terms of even the way that you're thinking about yourself, or that you consider your abilities and potential? What were you unafraid to step into in, like the July to September-ish of 2015? And was the Empress involved? Was there something kind of where you felt like loved, or you felt really excited to explore, you felt excited to move around and to really kind of like put some of those ghosts in the 12th house to bed? This is where the new moon is taking place. So welcome to your private recesses, Virgo rising. It's probably going to be a really great night for you to take it to yourself, I reckon. It's going to be nice for you to like run a bath. And if you wanted to get sort of metaphysical, crack open your tarot and give yourself a little reading for yourself. Maybe look at your birth chart if you have a copy of it, and meditate with it, sit with it, and have a look at the transits as well on your chart and what's going on in the sky right now. But all of this unconscious, behind the scenes, private work that you've been kicking goals at, this is the night to like plant the seeds for growth, to use that fertility of the Empress for growth, because we have broken a cycle here. It's really great. Now, I've got two cards that we're going to discuss as well with this reading, Virgo rising. So the first one that I have is the Fool. And so the reason I have the Fool is some tarot readers and some astrologers in the modern context will assign like the significations of the planet Uranus to the Fool. And the reason for that is there's something of like a revolution that occurs in both contexts. So if you look at this card and you see someone who's really like unafraid to take a bold step into something like quite nerve-wracking, the next great adventure, and you think about the planet Uranus and how they affect things like revolution, innovation, changing things up, flipping the script or flipping the table on something that's sort of like dusty, then this is how we sort of can relate those two things together. Actually, the tarot is a really great way to learn about astrology if you're better with pictures. That's just a little bit of advice. This is happening in your 9th house, Virgo rising. Uranus has been in Virgo. Let me start again. Uranus has been in Taurus in your 9th house since 2019. Now, to wheel back on too much of the jibber jabber, there's something in your spirituality. There's something in your yearning to travel and to move around and to shake things up that you've been investigating since 2018/19. Something here that really expanded your mind and opened you up to something really bold. Started in 2018 and 19 and will continue until about 2026. So the outer planets we don't always feel the effects of like we might do with Mars and Venus because they're so quick. They sort of tend to hang back, but when they form exact aspect, that's when we can sort of remind ourselves of the last time that this maybe happened. So the sun and the moon at 23 degrees in Leo in your unconscious chambers is in square pressure with Uranus, the Fool, in your sense of like travel and spirituality. So maybe as you sort of like do this work in privacy, you might look to the revolution that's been occurring for you since about 2018-19 that's aided you and helped you expand your sense of spirituality, expand your mind, expand your horizons. You might have been traveling for all of this time and you've been like gaining greater sort of like identification with the Fool, being like, nah, I'm not scared, I'm going to do that anyway. Shit, you know, I quoted my mum, I think in every horoscope this time around, but like feel the fear and do it anyway. That's what my mum always says. So like that's the kind of energy of Uranus. And she's an Aquarius sun too, so that makes a lot of sense. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. This is impetus for you at this new moon in Leo, Virgo rising, to take the next step as far as your inner work, continuing to break those cycles that you may have felt chained to by, you know, inheritance, you know, the inherited trauma perhaps that we can sometimes feel from our ancestors. This is the invitation to be like, this is your perception on life. This is how you've spent your time here. You've spent your time moving around, experiencing life, gaining a different kind of life experience that maybe is in sort of opposition to what your bloodlines had in mind for you. That could be the pressure that we're feeling with Uranus. A couple of hours after this new moon, so at like 11:53 p.m, the Fool is having another chat, but this time with Mars. So this time with the heat and the fire and the passion that's been rolling around inside of you for the past month at least. And remember, there was that bit of a face-off with Mars and Saturn in your 7th house of relationships. This is support. So there's something about your inner chambers that we're going to be like making wishes for at the new moon. There's something about your sense of self and this like growing sense of confidence in your conviction that is speaking to the Fool and being like, yep, this is what we're going to topple down. And I'm thinking about your relationship with yourself. The way that you speak to yourself sometimes, Virgo rising, is really ineffectual, and that's going to stop. In time, I'm not being bossy, but like this is what this astrology is speaking to me. It's like you are actually really brave and you've done such an incredible job to step out of what was maybe offered to you or what was maybe expected of you in life. There may have been a certain trajectory that you kind of felt like bound to, that you've shaken off from yourself with the help, obviously, of Uranus and the planets and stuff. Also your own steam. And I think that Mars in Virgo is like, this is the sort of megaphone. It's sort of like, yeah, you're excellent, Virgo rising. Like, that's what I've been trying to tell you. Like, I want you to take my energy of like destruction, but put it to good use and destroy some of this other sort of inner chatter or limitation, self-limitation. You're like revitalizing, revolutionizing, innovating your life, Virgo rising. And that's pretty effing wild. Who knows what, you know, like other folks your age in your hometown are up to now. It doesn't matter. We don't ever compare ourselves to other people, but it's sort of like, I'm sure that what you're doing at the minute is pretty unusual, pretty outside of what the expectation maybe would have been. And that's something to like hold up under your chin as a mark of pride. Like, you've taken this life with two hands and you've made the best with it. You're making the best of it. You're doing such cool things. That's the pep talk from Mars. So what I'm going to do is get some, which one do you want? No. Let's see. Yeah, 12th house work is some of the hardest work to get your head around, but frick, it's worth it. And what I see, yeah, like this is the moon to sort of like, you know, it's kind of like, okay, so what else can I develop? Where else can I go with this? You know, I've been brave enough to unlock this chamber. What else? You know, it's continuum. We never sort of like do the work and then fix ourselves and then it's over. You know, we always are sort of doing the best that we can to like develop. And it's, yeah. And this is such an achievement for you, Virgo rising. This feeling of heartache and betrayal and sorrow and sadness is really one of the most difficult cards to sort of work with and move through in the tarot. The Three of Swords is absolute pain and anguish and a feeling of like sort of like listless horror. You know, it's one of the hardest things to do is to heal from heartbreak. What I see right now is that you are healing from that heartbreak, and that potentially there's someone around that can be extra support for you at this time. I kind of feel like there's like a cheerleader that you can go to. Like if you have like mates that are sort of like amping you up and talking you up, then they're the folks to gravitate towards, because what you've amassed, the experience that you've amassed over the past, let's be specific, the past 8 years. Let's go back to the last time that Venus was retrograde in Leo in your inner chambers. Let's think about that really. 2015, let's remark upon how well you've done and how committed you've been to like see the cliff and jump off. What you've experienced hasn't had you be frightened. It hasn't put that dog in any terror either. That dog's raring to go. They can't wait. You can always trust a dog, can't you? If a dog's frightened, it's probably best to like look around and see what they're frightened of when meeting new people. And if your dog doesn't really trust them, that's probably a relaxing, important impulse to explore. We can learn a lot from animals, can't we? And I think that probably what you're feeling now is that sort of growing sense of like trust in your own intuitive powers. That healing from stuff like this, healing, moving with that emotion, working with it, you know, allowing it to roll through the body, but coming to this clearing where you're ready to sort of, you know, put on your like magical cape again, you'll know that in the back of your mind, that feeling that you had all the way back then, maybe in 2015, was like, something isn't right with this, like I just don't trust it. That will never probably happen to you as long as you continue to open that conversation with your inner knowing, your inner puppy dog. If you don't quite trust it, who's to say that you have to suck it up and go through with it anyway? Because when there's a single sword, that's from somewhere else. That's an offering of clarity. So when that's offered to you, that sword will be offered to you when you allow the sort of puppy dogness of your nature, sniff it out and feel it out. The great thing about puppy dogs too is that they'll love most people on first sight too. There's an ever-flowing opportunity to develop a really trusting, loving relationship with a dog. We've got to respect the instinct, ours and theirs. So as you move forward, trust instinct, listen to vulnerability, and have a friggin' awesome time, because this reading feels really powerful to me. Virgo rising, congratulations. Congratulate yourself. Holy hell. Well, put a line in the comments if you're still here with me, please, Virgo rising. That would be awesome. If you'd like your birth chart read, I can draw it up and do that for you. Here's an example of what they look like. At umaruby.com, you can book yourself a session with me. If you'd like to learn more about the goddess asteroids, I'd be thrilled to open that up for you. I've been studying them for a little while now, and I'm feeling like I'm kind of from experience, I can see how they show up and how we can speak to them in your chart too. They're a beautiful example of rounding out the pantheon too. Sometimes the astro speak can be really heavy-handed with the mask stuff, and so the goddesses give us that opportunity to find and rejoice the feminine inside us too. It's beautiful to have that balance. I love you heaps. Tip me at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. I will speak to you in 2 weeks, and we're going to deal with the super blue full moon in Pisces. This is going to be a psychedelic release and celebration of your 7th house, Virgo rising. All of the people that you love, you're going to tell them probably and hang out with them and enjoy it. I'll speak to you then. I'll give you plenty of notice so we can prepare for that one. It's going to be big. Bye.